Hi sociology students, it's Mrs. T, and this is one of our lessons in Unit 4. Unit 4 is all about social institutions, which are macro scale parts of the social structure that exist separately from each other but are connected to each other and create social structure, create a system of norms, create social facts that all of us have to live by if we follow the norms of the society in which we live. So therefore, family is a macro scale part of the social structure. That's why I've got macro highlighted here on the board. It's a macro part of the social structure, and our micro scale experiences are affected by the norms, the social expectations, and the social facts that are established by the pattern that family is expected to take in our society. Now, I say the pattern that family is expected to take in our society because we're going to look at different formats for families, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about families around the world and not just in the United States. In the United States, we have a particular form of family called a nuclear family. That's the expected economic structure of the family, and we will be looking at that in this lesson. And we'll also look at extended family forms, which you see much more around the world as the major economic unit. You see extended family forms used. So I'm mentioning these different micro level forms of the family that might be your experience or my experience on the micro scale. But those experiences on the micro scale are our experiences because family has a macro scale social pattern that's expected to exist in our society. So let me dive into what the sociological definition of family means, okay? Because this is a sociological definition of family. And if I ask you to provide me in writing a definition of family, I don't want you to say, it's mommy and daddy and we love each other, because that's not part of this sociological definition of family. I'm going to emphasize the word sociological a lot because we have to be very general in sociology when we define what family means and what certain other words mean, like sociological imagination that you watched in a recent video. We have to be very careful about what these things mean in a sociological context, because family does not take the same form and the same social expectation in other parts of the world as it does here in the United States. And since sociology is a form of social science that can study any part of the world at any time, then we have to make a very general definition of the word family that applies to any and every culture where families exist, which is everywhere all around the world. So let me explain a little what I mean here. Sociologically speaking, family is a macro scale part of the social structure. It's a macro scale part of the social structure that has standards or expected norms that people who call themselves family live together with a commitment to live together. The commitment word in this sociological definition refers to the fact that the family is an economic unit. It takes resources, it takes subsistence, and also advancement and comfort level resources to fit in to the society where you find different forms of families. The people who call themselves family live together with a commitment. The commitment is emotional. You are for each other. You are with each other. You lean on each other. You tell each other secrets. You get personal advice from family. So psychologically, family is committed to living together and being there for each other. But economically, family is committed to being there for each other and living together. Family and economy are two very intimately connected social institutions. As a matter of fact, one of these coming lectures that you'll have this week or the next will discuss the intricate link between family on the macro scale and economy on the macro scale. We will also look at family on the micro scale and economy on the micro scale, and how our life experiences in the different rungs of the ladder in that social stratification ladder, that life experience based on our family's resources, we might have a very different we might have a very different socialization process in what we learn are norms for living, norms for hobbies, norms for the amount of money that's available for us to spend, norms for what kind of profession we should go into, or what field should we pursue when we get to head our own family or our own household. So that household word is an economic word that refers to the fact that people live together with commitment under the same roof, under the same checkbook, so to speak. That's what a household is. And so family, from a sociological perspective, they are people who are committed to living together economically and being there for each other psychologically. We can't stop here, though. We can't just stop with that one characteristic to define what family is sociologically. Because, I had a roommate in college that I signed a lease with, and we were economically linked for the terms of that lease. And we often had late night talks, and she'd ask me for advice and I'd ask her for advice. And so we were linked emotionally also. And we were linked together economically to live together for that committed period of time. But my roommate and I are not family. Not in the social sense, nor in the sociological sense. Because family are people who are not only committed to living together from an economic standpoint and a psychological standpoint, but family, according to the macro scale definition, is also the social institution in our society that is responsible for children's upbringing. I have child rearing here because we say child rearing. That's the appropriate term. You don't raise a child, you raise farm animals, for instance. You raise a puppy up from puppy to dog. You raise animals, children are reared. So you can say child upbringing or child rearing, but in the United States and most places around the world, when we say family, there is some sort of understanding, some sort of macro scale expectation that there are people having and caring for young people. Because one of the major roles of the family on the macro scale for any society is to produce future adults. Okay? Where do future adults come from? Babies. So that's another lecture. Anyway, family has the responsibility to society as a whole to reproduce population from one period to the next, one generation to the next. So family are people who are committed to living together. Economically and psychologically, the commitment is there for each other, but there's also the expectation that you will care for young. Notice here that I did not say you will care for your own birth babies. Maybe you will care for stepchildren in the case of our society. Maybe it will be a grandma or a grandpa or an auntie who's caring for somebody else's baby. That's a micro scale variation of what your family life and my family life on the micro scale might differ, but the expectation is that family takes care of children. You don't just have a child and the neighbor lady wanders off with it and there's no big deal about that. That's no problem. Yes, that's a problem. Our society expects the adopted or biological family of that child to be the ones to care for it and put it through its upbringing. His or her upbringing, I should say. Put the child through his or her upbringing. So, We have an expectation that family means multiple generations, continued multiple generations, because society needs future generations to take over the adult role later on. You will hear me say many status and role words in this conversation about family, because family is a macro scale social institution. But if you remember back to chapter 4, when we were talking about the components, the elements of social structure, social institutions were only one of the 3 elements of that social structure. You had statuses and roles, and you also had social groups as 2 of the other 3 parts of social structure. So from family, the macro scale social institution, we have norms for and understanding that if you are family, you either now or have at some point in time lived together for a long period of time with commitment. This commitment means economic and emotional, but also the understanding, the expectation is that children are part of the equation, because children are vitally necessary for the future of society. And in that child rearing component of family, we have lots of statuses and roles. We have mom, we have dad, we have sister, we have brother, we have aunts and uncles, we have grandparents, we have all of these different people with different statuses and roles that are part of the mix when we're talking about that committed living together arrangement and child rearing. But still, that's not all, because there is also social identity that is significantly linked to your family membership. So social identity is something we've been talking about since at least chapter 3, if not chapter 2, and we're on chapter 11 now. I think this is number 11. So social identity is the way we are perceived by others. Social identity is the way we present ourselves for others to see us based on what we think their expectation is of us. So our social identity is significantly linked to your family membership. And this is a macro scale feature, because social identity here is also linked directly to the legal system. So there is another, the economic and the legal system. Because I can call you sister or brother. I can call you son or daughter, but if there is not a legal connection between you and me in those capacities, then there are many economic things within our social structure that you are not entitled to. I should have used English properly in that sentence. I should have said, there are many economic components of social structure to which you are not entitled if we do not have the social identity of the legal bond of adopted or biological relations or married relations associated with the living together, committed relationship, emotional, psychological. So there's a word in chapter 11 that you'll read at the very beginning of the chapter. It's called kinship. And kinship is a very fun and wildly interesting topic to investigate worldwide, because kinship means different things for different people worldwide. It's extremely interesting. I would love to tell you about it right now, but it will take me several hours just to introduce the concept to you. At least that's how long it takes in my anthropology class when we talk about kinship. But kinship in general refers to the fact that people share bloodline, people share marriage ties, which in our country is a legally sanctioned relationship. It's a legal thing. And also, adoption is a legal form of social identity linked to a family group. You do not have to be my biological offspring in order for me to legally arrange to adopt you, give you my last name, provide for your upbringing. Everyone knows you are my child now, and we live together with commitment. I have that economic and emotional commitment to you until the norms of our society say you should be free to go on your own and be the adult to repeat that process all over again. But the social expectation is, if I have you of my body, if I adopt you the legal way, it is my responsibility until your upbringing is complete, until legally you have an adult status. It's my responsibility to live with you and care for you economically and emotionally. And your social identity becomes listen to those possessive pronouns I've used in this video anyway. My offspring. I mean, offspring is kind of a generic term, right? That's not a warm, cuddly thing. Oh, come here, offspring, let me cuddle with you. No, the social identity is based on a legal arrangement called marriage, where you become kin, bloodline, because I have ancestors and I have descendants, or adoption rules, adoption, legality in our particular case. One of my best friends comes from Lebanon, which is a country along the Mediterranean coast in the Middle East, the Near East, I would call it. And in her country, adoption is not a normal thing. As a matter of fact, legally, a person is unable to adopt a child who does not already share their bloodline. Bloodline is vitally important for the family definition in the country where she grew up. You can adopt your cousin, you can adopt your 56th cousin, but you have to have some sort of bloodline trace back to a common ancestor in order for adoption to take place. That's not the legal norm for family in our society. I can adopt you if you were born in Guatemala and I've never seen your parents, your biological parents. I can still be mama and my father can still be papi and my husband can still be dada or whoever. Okay? So adoption can make the social identity. Marriage makes kinship and social identity. You are supposed to care for young because it reproduces the society later on for future generations. You're supposed to give them an upbringing that teaches them the norms and the expectations for them to repeat this process when it comes their time to do so. They're supposed to get economic knowledge. They're supposed to get emotional knowledge from you so that they can work their way into an adult life as a citizen, following the norms, following the social facts, following the expectations on the macro scale that set the rules for the statuses and roles that they will occupy and fulfill, and that also link primary groups and secondary groups to their micro scale daily lives in present day and future. So, I'm going to stop this lesson right now about the basic sociological components of the definition of family, okay? You have to have these basic sociological components in a definition of family in order to be correct in this class. Please notice, even though I say there's emotional commitment, emotional support, did I say love? No. Did I say bloodline? No. I said a lot about legality. Bloodline is a legal thing in the United States. Adoption is a legal thing. Marriage is a legal thing in the United States. And so these kinds of things are the components of the economic and legal system links that family has to our micro-scale lives. Okay, so the next lesson that I'll do very soon with you is going to talk about different family types, the structure of family. I mentioned in this video that there is a norm, there is an expectation that children will grow up and repeat the family pattern. And the family pattern is children, because society needs a population in order to continue. And so we're going to look at, we have some vocabulary words, surprise. We have vocabulary words specific to the social expectation that exists on the macro scale, that you are not only going to be a child once in your life, but when you grow up, you are expected to change your status, change your role from child in the family to adult in the family. What sort of statuses does adult in the family have? Mama, daddy, breadwinner, caregiver, husband, wife. Ooh, husband, wife. We'll look at those in just a second too, because we will also look at the sociological definition of marriage. And you won't have love in that definition either. Okay, so please text me with questions. I look forward to hearing from you, and you will see me again, maybe sooner than you want to, but we've got another lesson very, very soon on social institutions and the macro and micro connection. Bye.